Turn heads and bring the hype with a custom hype chain from Lotwin. Perfect for youth sports, fantasy football, or just flexing your pride. Go to Lotwin.com, use the promo code TCCPOD for 10% off your order. That's Lotwin.com, promo code TCCPOD for 10% off. Get your custom hype chain and get hype with Lotwin. What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history forward January 30th, 2026. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Feel Good Friday edition of the podcast. Today is a little bit more feel gooder because we have an offensive coordinator. Big story of the night last evening as I was at Ella's basketball game. Got the message that the Eagles have hired Sean Mannion as their new offensive coordinator. He was the quarterback coach for the past couple of years in Green Bay. Backup quarterback, so he has experience that way. And look, I know it's probably not everybody's first choice, but I said this the entire time. I'd rather them get the right guy versus the sexy, big name guy. Sure, maybe it wasn't their first choice. You never know. But I do think after 17 days or so, they did their due diligence. They uncovered a lot. They cast a wide net, and I talked about that yesterday as well on how that impacts just talking and getting ideas and what they probably should have done in hindsight last year with Kevin Patullo. But I don't hate this one. I don't hate this at all. Are you taking a chance? Sure. Part of the issue with Kevin Patullo was, and even Brian Johnson to a certain point, was that they did not have play calling experience. However, I feel this is slightly different because of not only his experience as a backup quarterback and quarterback coach, but he has been coached as a player by some of the guys in the Kyle Shanahan tree, which is good. He worked with Matt LaFleur. And truthfully, look at the job he did as quarterbacks coach with Malik Willis, who was widely considered a bust. And by the end of last season, fans everywhere, including some Packers fans that I know, were calling for Malik Willis to start in the playoffs for the Packers over Jordan Love. So I think this is good for Jalen Hurts. In the statement the Eagles released, they said he will be calling plays. If I'm Nick Sirianni, I kind of let him do his thing. Don't necessarily get involved. Trust the process, for lack of a better way to put it. But we'll see what happens. I mean, the Eagles have a history of correcting their mistakes. And I feel as though they weren't going to make the same mistake that they made with Kevin Patullo. I think what likely probably happened, and I'm sure we'll find out more at the press conference, but if you think back to when they hired Andy Reid, who, by the way, was a quarterback coach from the Green Bay Packers, they were impressed by his organization. The fact that he rolled into the interview with tons of notes and things like that. I have to almost think that from what I'm hearing and just the experiences, this is what happened with Sean Mannion. I'm very excited to hear this press conference, though, to get the take. But the Eagles get their guy. I think of the final guys here that came back for second interviews, this is the right choice. Listen, and as somebody who's going through job search right now, sometimes you got to take a chance. Take that leap of faith. And this guy, by all accounts, is one of those quote-unquote up-and-coming guys. And why not see? Get some fresh ideas. He's, like I said, the fact that Malik Willis went from a bust to being called for as the starter for the Packers based on the work he's done with this dude, I think that's going to go and bode well for Jalen Hurts. Obviously, this is January right now. He hasn't even been the offensive coordinator for a few hours. We were talking about this on one of my family text chains yesterday. And listen, it is what it is at this point. Whether or not it was their first choice, second choice, fifth choice, they got their guy. I have confidence and faith that if this was really a team effort, that they'll get it right. And also, I think this is a pivotal year for both Jalen and Nick. I think we're kind of at that. All right, what are we going to be? Did we just get fluky for a couple years there, or is this the start of something good? So I look for both of them to have good seasons. I teased last night on the text chain that the Jalen Hurts revenge tour is about to start, but we'll see. Like I said, I'm more excited and positive on this than what I thought I would be. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, I'd rather them do their due diligence, get a guy that's going to come in here and contribute, than just get the big name who's looking. Now, is Mannion going to be looking for a head coaching job? Most likely. But being that he's still young, I think he's going to want to kind of showcase his abilities here. So I'm excited for what the potential is here. So Sean Mannion, new Eagles offensive coordinator. And then the other big story out of the Eagles was this looked amazing. Cannot wait for this to come out. But ESPN did a 30 for 30 on the Phillies special. I've watched the trailer. It looks good. So go check that out as well. To the hardwood. Sixers with a 113-111 win over the Kings in an exciting game. It was back and forth. They did get down. This team has trouble in the third quarter for whatever reason. And I don't know if it's what they do at halftime with adjustments or what, but they ended up down 11 after the third quarter, battled back. Good defense down the stretch. Tyrese Maxey hit a layup with 1.3 seconds left to give the Sixers the win. He ended the night with 40 points. Joe had 37. Paul George contributed 15. And look, man, we keep talking. The big story yesterday was all about trading for Giannis, and I would not trade VJ Edgecombe. I'm going to go on record. I also cannot see a way that you can have both Joe and Giannis on the same team. Maybe I'm wrong, but good win for the Sixers. Joe seems to be, I notice he plays differently too. He's still having an impact, but I don't see him taking as many risks. So maybe he is learning now that he knows he needs to be back in the playoffs. Again, could be Lucy with the football. We'll see. But Sixers with a 113-111 win. Tomorrow night, they're back home against the Pelicans. Another game they could win. Hopefully, we see Joe and Paul George in the lineup for the third straight game. That would be nice. And over to the ice, and man, the Flyers are doing their best Tom Petty impersonation and free falling. They lose up in Boston 6-3. It is their third straight loss, 10 out of their last 12. They got in late to Boston due to mechanical issues with their plane at 3 a.m., so they were tired and just doomed from the start. Travis Konechny did have a goal and an assist, but man, this team cannot wait for the Olympic break to kind of reset here. But 6-3 loss to Boston. They're in action at home tomorrow against the X at 12, or at the X against the Kings at 12:30. The good old day-night hockey basketball doubleheader down at the X. But hopefully Sean Mannion performs better than the Flyers. All right, yesterday's trivia question. We talked about Paul George setting and tying the Sixers record for three-pointers in a game with 9. I asked you who were the other players he shared that with. I thought this one was going to trip people up, but Dana Barros was the first name mentioned. Tyrese Maxey, and the name that really tripped everyone up was Danny Green. Yes, Danny Green had 9 3-pointers in a game in 2021. Followed that up with 8 later that season as well. So Dana Barros, Danny Green, and Tyrese Maxey all had 9 3-pointers in a game. Paul George joined them, I should say, setting the Sixers record. Will someone get to 10? That is the question. All right, some quick housekeeping notes. Be sure to follow me on all social media platforms at Philly Jimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont. Continue to spread the word as we grow this thing. Lots of good things potentially on the horizon. I volunteer and work closely with the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. Some talks about some different podcasting ideas with them, so stay tuned for that. Of course, we are proud members of the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network. Go to clashingconferences.com for details on that. And it is set Wednesday night late. We will have the Super Bowl edition of the Brotherly Birds Breakdown. Kyle and I will obviously talk about Sean Mannion. We'll talk about the upcoming offseason, take a look at the Super Bowl, any tie-ins and implications for the Eagles. So stay tuned for that, dropping on Wednesday night. Brotherly Birds Breakdown, Super Bowl edition.
Hey guys, guess what time it is? It's cookie season. I'm Ella here, your favorite Girl Scout, and we have your oldies but goodies. Lemonades, Dimmits, peanut butter sandwiches, and more. This year we have a new cookie flavor called the Explore Mug. My goal is 200 boxes, so please make that happen. You're gonna buy cookies anyway, so why not buy them from me?
All right, January 30th. Honestly, kind of a light day in Philly sports history. We're in that transition period where we're kind of turning the page, no pun intended, from football into basketball and hockey and looking ahead toward Philly spring training. But on this day in 1987, the Sixers and the Bulls played at the Spectrum, and two future Hall of Famers put on a show. The GOAT, Michael Jordan, scored 49, but Charles Barkley, to his credit, had 40 points, 21 rebounds, and added 5 assists as the Sixers beat the Bulls 121 to 112 to improve to 26 and 18 on the season. Mo Cheeks added 17 points and 8 assists, and Cliff, not Clifford, remember, we got the wrong Cliff Robinson, added 16. It's one of many great games that Michael Jordan, though, had against the Sixers. Seemed to always play well against them, averaging almost 31 points a game in 57 career games versus them. And then when the playoffs started, it was even worse, averaging 38 points a game in 10 playoff games against the Sixers. But Charles and the Sixers got the best of MJ this day, 121-112 at the Spectrum. Jordan putting up 49, but Barkley with 40 points and 21 rebounds. Fast forward to 1996 and classify this one in the, oh yeah, I forgot he played here category. On this day in 1996, the Phillies signed Benito Santiago to a one-year deal. Always forget that Benito played here, and it was sort of one of those transitional periods for Benito. Had a solid year for the Phillies that year. Hit 264, 30 homers, 85 RBI, 21 doubles. Of course, played solid defense as catcher. But unfortunately for the Phillies and Benito that year, they lost 95 games. But again, classify this one as, oh yeah, he played here. Benito Santiago signed with the Phillies on this day, had a good year before moving on to bigger and better things. And then finally, in 2002, Flyers lose to the Senators 3-1 on the road, but Jeremy Roenick scored the Flyers' lone goal in the first period. It was his 1,000th career point. He became the fourth American-born player to ever achieve the feat. I believe at the time he was the 63rd player all-time to score 1,000 points. He ended his career with 173 points in only 3 years, and I think the future Hall of Famer, really, of all the teams he played for, I think he's talked about this. He enjoyed playing here in Philly, but in a short time, he made such a big impact on the Philly sports fans, Flyers fans, always a fan favorite. Seems like he was here for longer than that, but only played 3 years. But on this day in 2002, Jeremy Roenick scores his 1,000th point, becoming the fourth American-born player to do so. And that leads us into today's trivia question. Jeremy Roenick was the fourth. How many American-born players have scored 1,000 points in their career? And since it's the weekend, I like to give you a little bit more of a homework assignment on the weekend. Who are they? So which American-born players have scored 1,000 points? I'll give you a hint. There are 10 of them. I know I just changed the question here on the fly, but which American-born players have 1,000 or more NHL points? And if you're paying attention, one of them just moved up that list last night.
It's time for Fridays with AI. where we ask AI to rewrite Philly sports history. Every Friday, only on This Day in Philly Sports History.
That's right. It is Friday. Time to spend Fridays with AI, brought to you by Philly Goat. Go to phillygoat.com for your Philly sports apparel needs. They have the best t-shirts in the area. Go check them out and use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. And AI has been focusing a lot the past weeks, I should say, on trying to lighten the mood as we're, again, in that transition period, still disappointed at the way the Eagles season ended, and has been really focusing on us, the fans. So today, AI is taking a look at Philly stereotypes and how that plays into our sports team. And again, stereotypes are usually not a good thing, but I think AI really nailed it this one and really gives a new meaning, a new look at it's a Philly thing, which, by the way, you can get that shirt at Philly Goat as well. All right, so the first one, I've talked about this, and this is the first one AI came up with. It's almost like AI listens to me while I do this podcast, which sounds funny, but really, with the way technology is, AI is definitely listening to us right now. But the first stereotype is the whole nobody likes us, we don't care narrative. We tend to fall in love with the guys that nobody likes, the castaways, the backup quarterbacks, so to speak, keeping an Eagles thing on it. And when people rip us, we don't care. We love a good backup quarterback here in Philly. And we have since the end of the Randall Cunningham era. If you go back, we've always embraced the backup. When we called for Rodney Peete to start over Randall, both of the Detmer brothers, A.J. Feely, Nick Foles, of course, folk hero Nick Foles, Michael Vick, Jeff Garcia, and now even this past season, Tanner McKee. We love ourselves a good backup quarterback. Hell, there's even a little bit of Minshew mania here in Philly, and we know how that worked out. But we don't care. We'll throw our starter under the bus, and we always have since probably, if you go back to Jaworski days, I'm sure our dads and our grandfathers were probably like, forget who the backup was, but put him in. But at the end of the Jaworski era, it was put Randall in. So we don't care. Nationally, we get ripped for it. You're hard on your players, blah, 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 blah. But we don't care. Second stereotype, we're honest and knowledgeable. And I think there's some merit to this, but AI said we boo. It's what we do. It's in our DNA. Doesn't matter if you win a Super Bowl or deliver gifts on Christmas Eve. If you're not doing your job the way you should, you're going to get booed. Yes, the whole Santa Claus booing narrative, throwing snowballs. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't play well, we'll give you feedback. If you play well, we'll give you feedback. You'll know it when we like you. And the booing, again, it's just our way of showing love, I guess. But think about it as players and even Sean Mannion, who's coming in as the new offensive coordinator. It's like a live, real-time Yelp review. All right, third, this one, always people talk about Philly's blue-collar mentality. And with our sports teams, it's the same way. We love ourselves a good role player. We like a guy who comes in, hustles, plays hard, might not be the most talented, but will go out there and give 100% effort every time he's on the floor. Guys like Andre Waters, T.J. McConnell, Robert Covington, Harrison Bader, who just left. We loved him. He was perfect for that blue-collar role. Bonus points if you're a guy like Chase Utley, who does all that and actually is a star player on top of it. We just want a guy who can pack a lunch, gets dirty, gets to work, and gets the job done. And this one, this is why I think AI listens to me. The old Philly mentality. We've seen this before. Doomsday. The worst case scenario is going to happen. But I think there's something to that. And AI said we tend as Philly fans to feel and know that heartbreak and a horrible ending is going to come. But we watch it anyway. I don't know how many times back in the Andy Reid Donovan days, I'm like, this game's over. And I would leave games early and be like, there's no chance. There was also times where I'm like, 4th and 26, for instance, where I'm like, I can't leave. I have a feeling. We tend to have like that sixth sense about either good things or impending doom, but we watch it anyway. I don't know how many times I've said it. I've been on text chains that said it. I've been in person at games and I've heard this, whether it's Eagles, Phillies, Sixers, or Flyers. They're going to lose this. And it's not pessimism, it's preparation. We've been there before. We know what's happening. We feel it. We feel it in our bones. And the last one, families that fight. How many times do you get into an argument with your family? We spend all week ripping our Philly teams, whether it's Joe, the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, Bryce Harper. I think very, very few people are immune from our vitriol when we're angry and we have high expectations for our teams, even in the good times. How many times this year the Eagles were having a solid season that many teams in the NHL or NFL would die for? We were not happy. Last year with the Phillies were in first place. Phillies were winning the NL East. We're still ripping them because we're not happy. That's just what we do. Again, just like booing, we will rip our players. It's in our DNA. We talked about that last week. But as soon as an opposing fan, say a Dallas fan or a Mets fan, starts talking trash on our teams, the hair on our back stands up and we fight back. Because truthfully, we can rip our family. We can rip our teams, but don't you dare come in as an outsider and talk your trash. It's what we do. Hell, how many years did we defend the vet? We called it a dump. It was a dump, but it was our dump. These players suck sometimes, but there are players that suck. So we can say they suck, but don't you dare come in and say it. So AI kind of summed it up as this. These are not flaws. These are habits that are formed by experience. These are things that all Philly fans do at different times. Doesn't matter if we've won a Super Bowl, won a World Series. This is what we do as Philly fans. How do you think? What are your thoughts on how this fits into the stereotypes as Philly fans? And a lot of these are actual Philly type. Because if you think about it, nobody rips Philly more than people in Philly themselves. But as someone who lived almost 20 years in the city, when somebody else ripped Philly, I'm like, whoa. Back up. But let me know your thoughts. 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Get that. Anything else Philly sports related off of your chest. We've been having some fun with AI here on a Friday, talking Phillies fans. AI teased it to me a little bit and said we'll probably do something more with the fans next week as we turn the page into February. But that was Fridays with AI, brought to you by Philly Goat. Go to phillygoat.com. Use that promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. And then finally today, our final Turning the Page. All month, we've been turning the page and looking at the events that changed Philly sports forever. And all of that was validation and truthfully leading up to this. And that was last year's Super Bowl, almost a year ago, Super Bowl 59. It all led us here. And to me, Super Bowl 59 validated Super Bowl 52. It validated the Eagles as a franchise because there's so many teams out there that have one Super Bowl that you can kind of chalk up to fluke. I talk all the time that's the Super Bowl winners being like an exclusive club. And for years, we were waiting out in the cold, just trying to get in, taking a peek inside. Super Bowl 52, we got inside. And now we've kind of upgraded. We moved to the second level of that. We're hanging out with different teams now. But I think to me, that validated us as a franchise and also as a fan base. Because now, yes, the other teams in the NFC East do have more Super Bowls than us. However, we have more than one. So we kind of moved up from the kids table to the adult table. We're having those conversations. We can have a cup of coffee at the end of dinner. We can have an espresso martini with the big boys. So I think as Philly fans, we carry ourselves differently these past 12 months, all of our sports, truthfully. And I think if it taught us anything, it's just that we're built differently. How many teams would be ripping their team, their coach, their quarterback a year after winning the Super Bowl? Not many. But I think what that does, it raises our expectations. It ties into what AI was talking about with Fridays with AI. And like I said, I think Super Bowl 59 really validated us as a team and as a fan base. And it does carry over into the other teams as well, because the expectations now are for the Phillies are World Series or bust. And the fact that they didn't have a great offseason, that's leading to some of where we're coming from with Dave Dombrowski and the front office there. But the fact of the matter is, as Philly fans, as sports fans in general, we'll always have more page to turn. There's always going to be those page-turning moments. At some point in time, the page will turn on Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, Saquon Barkley, and those guys, and there'll just be another page in the history book, and we'll be on to the next thing. It's just the life of a Philly fan. And as someone who's been a Philly fan my whole life, who just turned 47, turned a lot of pages in my life. Maybe even the next page will be turned this year. Maybe we won't even know it for a couple years that this page is turning. So what's next? What's happening this year? What's going to be the next page to turn? Because at the end of the day, we have expectations. They're back. Our frustrations, they've come back. The debates and the arguments over what the team should do, they're back. The noise, the second guessing, the feeling we are leaving meat on the bone, a la this past Eagles season, they're all back. Super Bowl, maybe for a couple months there, changed that, but all back. So I appreciate it. This was a fun little way to start the new year here on the podcast. We turned a lot of pages. We learned a lot about who we are as Philly fans. I think we've matured over the years due to all of these pages and different things that we've had to deal with. We won. Finally, we won. We have 2 of those Super Bowl things now, so that's a good thing. Do we care too much? Probably. Do we hurt when the seasons are over? Every time. Do we believe, sometimes irrationally, that the window is opened or closed? All the time. That will never change. But no matter what, no matter how many pages we turn, this isn't about happy endings. The happy endings are nice. It's about coming back and looking forward to next year and believing that the next turn of the page matters. So I hope you had some fun with the turning the page of the new year. Starting on Monday, it's February, it's Black History Month. So we are going to spotlight, and I'm naming it Forged by Philly. So these are before championships, before the headlines, before all the accolades. These are athletes whose stories and all of that was forged here in Philly. So stay tuned. I'm excited for that as we kick off Black History Month in February. Be sure to hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line and let me know your thoughts on Sean Mannion, anything else, the Giannis, VJ, whatever situation. Let me know your thoughts on all that. Let's have some fun this weekend. And of course, the trivia question: who are the 10 American-born players who score 1,000 points in the NHL? All in honor of this day in 2002, Jeremy Roenick scores his 1,000th career point in a Flyers 3-1 loss to Ottawa. Benito Santiago signed with the Phillies on this day in 1996. And then in 1987, Charles Barkley and Michael Jordan put on a show down at the Spectrum. MJ had more points, but Barkley got the win, 121-112. We will be back on Monday to rewind the weekend as we always go. Hopefully, we'll have the press conference with Sean Mannion. I've never been more excited for a press conference. Not really sure why, but I'm anxious to see what he has to say. And I'm very intrigued by this signing. That's why I want to know what your thoughts are, what your feelings are. Again, it might not be our first choice, but it's our guy. Ties in with all of the stuff we've been talking about. Might not be the best candidate, but he's our candidate. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for January 30th, 2026. My name's Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a feel-good Friday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.